Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. How are you doing this fine? Who knows when I'm going to air this? I'm doing quite well. I'm drinking coffee. I'm drinking water. I had an oatmeal bar, living my best life. My last video is a second round of updates on Bam Margera, his health, his being put on a ventilator or maybe not, his all that. If you missed that video and you're interested, it is posted on my channel. You can go watch it there. There was also a kind of like part 1 to it when I was reading the breaking news that was being reported that Bam was on a ventilator and all that. So if you haven't seen those, go ahead and watch them. Today's video is going to be about the Vice documentary that was just aired, or I should say re-aired on YouTube, which features Bam Margera. Now, the first time I saw this documentary was this past Sunday, and that's when it aired. I watched it 3 hours after it came out. When I sat down to watch the documentary, I had been meal prepping all day, and people were like blowing my Instagram up. I did not know until after I was done with my activities for the morning and the early afternoon that this documentary had even come out. People were telling me, did you see the new documentary? Did you see the documentary that they just put out about Bam? It's a new documentary. And it seemed like most of the people who were informing me about this documentary were under the impression that it was a new documentary. Now, when you go and look at the upload on YouTube, which is now 2 days old or so, it does say that the documentary originally aired in 2017. But when I was watching it for the first time, either that wasn't in the description box or equally as likely, I just didn't see it because I did watch it on like AirPlay or whatever in my house. So I wasn't like really reading the description box. I just was like trying to hurry up and watch because everyone was telling me about it. So I did record some real-time reactions. I think I'm going to mostly just play those here. And maybe at the end, I'll do a little bit of a recap. Maybe we'll do a little bit of a reaction here. There's one more bit of information that people have given me, which is this footage is old, but I am told that Epically Latered was actually a series about skateboarders and that this documentary has also aired in the past. So I cannot help but notice the impeccable timing of Vice in the re-release of this documentary. We had the documentary being re-released on YouTube on the exact same day. I mean, almost exactly the same exact time on the same day as Bam being released from the hospital. It was also very shocking that Bam was being released from the hospital at all because 2 days prior to that, it was being reported by multiple news outlets that Bam was in the ICU on a ventilator with pneumonia, testing positive for C19. 2 days later, we have Johnny Schillereff driving from wherever he drove from to log Bam into his Instagram account, go live with him for 2 minutes, and then boom, a Vice documentary about the pitfalls of fame is re-released on YouTube and everyone's buzzing about it. Listen, I'm getting to the point in my life where I don't really believe in coincidences, but anything's possible. Without further ado, let's get into what my thoughts were as I was watching this documentary. I also probably end up putting in some of like me re-reacting to it, but I really don't know how this video is going to go. I know a lot of y'all are interested in my opinion and my commentary on the documentary, so let's get right into it. I swear to God, one day in my life, I'll be able to get a day off. So I'm just minding my own business, doing my meal prep, got a video about that coming, and out of nowhere on a damn Sunday morning, Vice News wants to drop a Bam Margera documentary. So I'm watching it now. It's 43 minutes long. I'm 3 minutes, 25 seconds into it. What I can tell you so far is Tony Hawk is in it. April Margera, Bam's mom, is in it. Phil, Bam's dad, is in it. Brandon Novak seems to be in it. And some other skateboarders I never heard of in my life are in it. So yeah, right now, 3 minutes, 25 seconds in, it looks like they are just doing a little bit of a backstory, a life story about Bam and stuff like that. So stand by, I'll let y'all know what I think. I think this footage might be old. This footage is definitely old, which begs the question to me, why are they now releasing it? Now, at the time that I'm watching this right now, Bam just came out yesterday on his Instagram with Johnny Schillereff saying that he was done being in the hospital and he was about to go to be with some shaman for 100 days in San Diego. The day before yesterday, TMZ was reporting that Bam was on a ventilator. So this is all just very suspicious and weird to me. Like, what is this timeline? Like, TMZ reports that Bam's on a ventilator with pneumonia and COVID. And the very next day, Bam comes out and says, hey, out of the hospital, going to be with a shaman. After that, they're releasing this Vice documentary with Phil and April with very old footage. I'm only 8 minutes in, but these are just the things that I'm thinking as I'm going through this and as I'm watching it. I'm about 18 minutes, 50 something seconds into this documentary, and Bam very uncomfortably just said that Nikki was pregnant. I would say he doesn't seem very excited to be becoming a dad, unfortunately, but.
Saw the grandkids. Like, he was really afraid to hold the baby.
Even though she's one.
I don't do well with it.
Huh?
I don't do well with it.
Well, you better get used to it real quick, because do you want to tell them your news?
You tell them the news.
Uh-huh.
You tell them the news.
No, don't leave.
You tell them the news.
You didn't
No.
tell him in Spain? You never said it?
No, you're saying it.
I didn't know until they left.
Oh, he found out at the
He found out.
Okay.
So do you want to say what's new?
You say it.
No. I want to hear you say it.
Nikki's pregnant.
So you better get used to
So guess
holding
who's being a
babies.
dad?
So there's a couple things to me that are interesting, we'll say, about the scene. First of all, that April seems to be a little bit domineering of this situation. Even just listen, I'm not a body language expert, but she's standing up. She's doing the hand on the hip power pose. She's the only one standing up. She's right in the middle. She's kind of yelling. Seems like she's trying to be funny, trying to kind of be in control of the social interaction, which I'm not saying anything's wrong with it. I'm just pointing out what it seems like to me. And then two interesting things. First interesting thing, Bam is clearly uncomfortable. Like I said in that initial reaction, he's not wanting to say it. So that's interesting in and of itself. It's almost like maybe he didn't want to reveal that Nikki was pregnant and he was uncomfortable talking about it. He said, I don't do well with holding babies, which I'm sympathetic to on one hand, but on the other hand, like, then don't do the activity that makes babies. You know what I mean? Like, clearly we're doing the activity that makes the babies. So maybe that's something you could have thought about. The second thing that I find interesting is that April does push him despite seeing, I mean, listen, I'm a total outsider and I can look on a video and tell that he don't want to talk about it. You got to tell him. It's interesting to me that instead of Bam just frankly manning up and saying Nikki's pregnant, he stands up and removes himself from the situation. He walks away from the table and he's like, you tell him, you tell him.
Do you want to tell them your news?
You tell them the news.
Uh-huh.
You tell them the news.
No, don't leave.
And it almost kind of reminds me of like, you know, when I had my first job when I was like 15 or whatever. And I wanted to call out from work, but I was scared. And I'm like, oh, mom, can you call the work and tell them I'm sick or whatever, right? And just a really interesting dynamic that at however old he would have been here, 38 years old, however old he is, he's still kind of saying like, no, you tell him. But at the same time, I have to balance that out with the fact that April's going, you got to tell him, you got to tell him. And it's like, why? He clearly doesn't want to. It's just starting to give me a little insight into the family dynamic. And there's another scene that's going to be coming up soon that really gives me insight into the family dynamic. And it happens between April and Phil. So we'll get to that soon. I have made a very deliberate and conscious attempt not to watch Jackass. It grossed me out when I was a little girl. It grossed me out when I was a teenager. I did not watch it. Even through my Bam Margera conservatorship coverage, I have not watched the shit because it is so nasty. And I just got to the part where the guy took the X-Lax. It makes me physically ill. And the fact that Jeff Tremaine and Johnny Knoxville and whoever else like looked at this and were like, oh, I have an idea. Let's put this for mass consumption.
I went to Spike and Johnny Knoxville and I said, hey, let's partner up and make a TV show.
You know, you look at all those CKY videos and he's like, this is my world.
I got a call from Jeff Tremaine, and that's where I met Johnny Knoxville, and we watched CKY 2K together. Tremaine said, do you mind if I use some of these clips for a pilot that I want to do called Jackass on MTV?
We just filmed this stuff, and I thought what we were getting was funny, but I didn't think everyone would think it was funny, you know?
It makes me want to throw up. Like, it's one thing for like a neighborhood gang of rowdy teenagers to be making this stuff, but like the fact that like adults saw it and were like, oh, let's put this on television for mass consumption really makes me legitimately ill. Like, I'm ill about it. I've made very deliberate steps not to watch this stuff. Like, I feel like it's really nasty. I'm just not in support in any way, shape, or form of the show Jackass, and frankly, or the CKY thing. Now, I will say I did watch Haggard, and there were some parts in there that were kind of like a little unbearable, but it felt to me like art. Like, it still felt to me like there was a perspective, there was a vision. This X-Lax thing is disgusting. Hopefully that's the worst of it.
We go out and sell it, but I still don't even know what it is that we just saw.
Bam was definitely over the age of 18 at the time, so he was an adult, legally speaking. But it seems like April and Phil were like happy to go along with this stuff. Yeah, she's screaming. Yeah, she's hollering. What are you doing? You ruined the whole house. But like, I can tell y'all what I would do if somebody was ruining the house that I was living in. I would leave that house and I would say, don't bring those damn shenanigans around me because that's not the frequencies that I can handle.
And what he would film, I thought was like sheer genius. Like, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, that's so funny.
Like, whatever you're going to do over there, you're grown, you're an adult, you can do it over there. But the fact that April and Phil seem to have been more than happy to like be pictured and featured.
Are you kidding me? We just destroyed the whole house!
We're just joking.
On Viva La Bam and Jackass even, and have these pranks like played on them and stuff, like I would not tolerate that. Like I just wouldn't. There's no amount of fame, there's no amount of money that I would ever be able to accept to live my life in such chaos and turmoil. It's literally disgusting. It's dysfunctional and it's toxic. And the fact that Bam grew up from a very young child into young adulthood with his parents seemingly enabling this type of behavior, it doesn't surprise me at all that Bam ended up unable to take accountability and unable to accept the consequences for his actions because the whole time he's had this Phil and April safety net.
There's no one telling you no.
Most kids that age, you know, it's usually you giving them the checks, but he had money coming in.
Yeah, my brother and I, Vince, was his accountant mainly. And my brother had the nerve to scream at him, and I never had the nerve to scream at Bam.
We listen to him because it's his money, number one, and number two, he seems to know what people want to see. So I'm just going to shut up.
And they were participating in it. You ruined the whole house. Okay, girl, then move out. You got a job, don't you? What person in their right mind would stand by and participate in this? It is absolutely disgusting and vile. I mean, listen, her body, her choice. But it doesn't surprise me that the circumstances ended up the way they did. Okay, listen, I don't know anything about Phil. This is some of the most I've ever even seen the man in these clips. But I will say, just from this one interaction that I just saw at the dinner table with Phil not being able to hang the phone up, like April immediately like makes Phil into like a punching bag. Like, oh, he's so annoying. I'm sorry. Like, Phil doesn't know how to hang the phone up. Like, he's saying he's trying.
When I already, who is it?
Phil, hang it up.
I'm trying to figure this phone out. Hold
Hang
on.
it up.
Where's the end button?
He's so annoying. I'm so sorry.
Is that it?
I'm going to punch you. Oh, Lord.
What the hell am I doing?
Phil.
Are you joking?
How about you take your lazy ass, pick the phone up in your hand and end the call? No, she would rather stand there and laugh at him,
He's so annoying. I'm so sorry.
make fun of him and make him the butt of a joke. And that's not a partnership, not a successful one.
Phil, hang it up.
That's toxic.
I'm going to punch you.
So Bam probably saw that type of behavior between his mother and father his whole life.
Hang it up.
He's so annoying. I'm so sorry. Like, I would never talk about Prim like that. I would never speak to him like that on camera in front of people, for damn sure. And it just kind of shows a little bit of insight, in my opinion, into the dynamics of the family and the dynamics of the relationship. Dysfunctional, toxic, and honestly a little bit triggering to me. Like, I feel nauseated watching this, and I feel uneasy, and I feel on edge. I don't feel comfortable. It doesn't seem like a family that's safe, loving, and supporting. It seems like they're all just kind of like screaming. Their cortisol levels are through the roof. They're all clearly very inflamed. They probably all need a liver cleanse. And they're making poor Phil the butt of the joke. The man seems to maybe have some blood pressure issues. Probably got real bad anxiety. He's just trying to hang the phone up. Why is she screaming at him like that? It's unnecessary.
I'm going to punch you.
I'm about 36 minutes into the documentary, so it's winding up, and they're talking about Ryan Dunn.
This is where I would edit for weeks and weeks.
What were you working on?
The movie about Andy McCoy from Hanoi Rocks, and also my movie, but I've been working on it for like 4 years that I've had enough.
Like, there's stuff you need to take out that you think's important that isn't important. And there's
Well, none
stuff
of it's
that's
important
important
right
that you need
now.
to leave in.
And they're getting to the part where Bam said he has 11 terabytes of footage about Ryan Dunn and about him and Ryan and stuff like that.
There was so much footage. It was 11 terabytes of footage that I had to go through.
He's talking about his grief. He's talking about the pain of having to sit through and edit a movie about Ryan and about, you know, their friendship and stuff, and just having to watch it while you're editing it. And I think what he's trying to say is that it brought back a lot of memories and it brought back a lot of pain for him.
I never pictured what I would do if that happened. It just wasn't an option.
Which is completely understandable. The question that continuously arises in my mind, and the question that I ask any insider type of person who I can get a hold of or who does talk to me, is where is that footage and who owns it? Because Ryan Dunn is no longer with us.
I always said to Ryan, dude, you're gonna die in a car crash. You don't slow down. You drive like a freaking maniac. He said, you forgot one thing, Ape. Fiery car crash.
And 11 terabytes of video footage is a lot.
Who the can put 4 months of footage into 2 hours?
We're not talking 1080p. We're talking a lot of this footage is probably like not taken up as much as like 4K. You know what I mean?
If you hit play on 11 terabytes and just let it play that I had to watch, it's like 4 months worth of footage.
So who owns the rights to that footage?
Like, when Ryan passed, it was shocking to all of us, you know, like, Bam was already in a bad spot, and for that to happen when it did, it just sunk him.
Who has the footage?
He was like, couldn't figure out how to end the documentary. He's like, I don't know how to end the documentary. And I was trying to tell him to stop editing the documentary and put it away, because I think the reason you're having trouble is you don't know what to do with your life right now.
And that's not really the point of this whole video. That's not really what I'm trying to, necessarily take away from the whole thing. But I do just want to put that there because I've asked this question before. I'm going to keep asking it. Bam Margera has said that he's worked on a movie editing it for 4 years, which may be not true. Like, he could lie. He's probably lied before about stuff. But if there's a movie out there that's already mostly edited that Bam continuously says that he wants to put out with unreleased footage of Ryan Dunn and Bam together.
My best friend Ryan Dunn died in a car accident 2 years ago. He's dead and gone.
I can imagine that could go for a lot of money. Who owns that footage? Who has possession of the footage? And who owns the rights to it? All right, listen, everybody already knows my opinion about Brandon Novak. You know that he's not my favorite person. But watching this footage of him being obviously strung out on some type of substance and being pushed across the parking lot with no pants on and his genitals hanging out and all that, I can't help but feel for him as a person. Like, I wish I could just not like somebody and just be like, oh, I don't like them, so like I don't care. But like, just watching it just gives me such a bad feeling, because even Bam at that time was exploiting and taking advantage of somebody in a really vulnerable state.
It was very easy for Bam to deflect his issues because they would all point a finger and say, I'm not as bad as Novak.
And it's not cool. And then at the end, right, of the scene, he says, see what happens when you're broke. You'll do anything for $100.
Oh, see what happens when you're broke? You'll do anything for $100. God, my life sucks.
And on top of the fact that he was a drug addict at the time. And so it just hurts me. This whole thing just makes me feel like so, it's just dark. It's just so dark how this whole thing happened.
It's sad in a sense because I always used to think we were unique, and then we just became this total cliche story of small town kids, got recognition from television, started doing this whole little Hollywood thing, and then all of a sudden we're just all on and drinking and partying and doing all that stuff, and it's just this sad little story.
Maybe it wasn't preventable. Maybe the whole thing was inevitable. Maybe this is just how it goes. But I can't help but wonder how it would have gone if there were responsible adults around, if there were people around who didn't enable it, if there were people around who cared about their well-being and cared about them as people. It doesn't look like Jeff Tremaine gave a shit about Brandon Novak or Bam Margera as people.
Bam thinks he's going to be doing a prank on Jeff, but he's going to be falling into that pit. There's a few hundred live snakes we're going to throw in there with them. Bam really hates snakes, too. This may be the first time Bam cries in the film.
Oh, fuck! Oh, no! Oh, don't do this to me! Yo, seriously, get me out! Get me out now! Please!
Is he crying?
He's really crying.
Please! Tremaine, you motherfucker! Get me out now! Dude, you can't do that to me, man. That is the worst fear I could ever imagine. Look at this snake.
Can't think of anything more terrifying than that just happened.
Stop me, man! You're gonna make me have a heart. I'm seriously. Thank God I'm leaving at 3 today. I am counting down the minutes. I'm gonna see if there's a 1 hour earlier flight.
Is he crying? He's really crying.
They were products. I mean, even Tony Hawk, who I consider to be a pretty neutral party, is saying the chaos was louder than the what? The product.
You know, at some point it just got to be that the chaos was louder than the product.
Bam and Brandon and even Steve-O the failed clown, they were products. They are still products. I mean, it's not lost on me all the constant footage. They could have used any footage at all in this 43-minute documentary. I would like to add up how many minutes of footage is Bam branded skateboards. Like, it almost feels like still a product, an advertisement to get people hype about buying these skateboards. I mean, right now as we speak, there are merch skateboards on Bam's Instagram page that he doesn't even have the password to. Johnny Shillareff is driving up to San Diego to make appearances on Instagram Live with Bam Margera and also making money as the owner of Element Skateboards off of Bam branded skateboards. It's just sick. And to see Brandon Novak in that type of a situation, on strung out, vulnerable, needing a responsible adult around. I mean, even Bam was taking advantage of him in that state. He got paid $100 to take his pants off and get thrown into a pole in the middle of a parking lot at nighttime. Like, it's sad. It's sad, and it makes me feel bad for Brandon Novak. I'm sure he doesn't want my sympathy. I'm sure he doesn't give a shit what I think about him, but it's sad. It's sad to me. Let's see what else is going on here. All right, well, I just finished it. I think it's just two big takeaways here is that I'm overwhelmingly just sad. I'm just sad to see where Bam ended up. It does give me a little bit more insight into some of the people surrounding Bam, some of the family dynamics, stuff like that. He came on Instagram Live yesterday and said that he had seizures. Seizures from what? I don't know. He didn't say. It's not lost on me that the person with the login to Bam's Instagram account had to sit there and babysit Bam while he was on live on his own damn Instagram account. It's gonna probably take me the rest of the day to really process this. It's dark, it's sad. Seeing that footage of Brandon Novak, like, in the throes of addiction, seeing how all of these guys were really exploited and capitalized on as young, vulnerable, naive children by Hollywood, by the media, by grifters, by bad actors, seeing the dynamic between the family members, seeing April and Phil not really having a respectful and loving relationship as far as I could tell based on the very limited interaction I saw them participating in. It just makes me feel sad, and it makes me feel bummed out. So I'll process this, and then I'll probably put together a little bit more of a conclusion at the end after I've had time to kind of get through it. But I mean, it's just hard for me to see people struggling like that, and it's hard to see such a dramatic and exciting rise and then such a catastrophic fall. And again, I mean, this video didn't even really cover how catastrophic the fall really got.
2 days later.
I've really had a couple days to sit on and process the clips, and to be honest, still bums me out. I'm still disgusted. There are still scenes that I watched that are branded inside my mind that I don't think I'll ever be able to forget. And in the process of editing this video today, going and finding those clips of Jeff Tremaine and Johnny Knoxville, in my opinion, quite literally abusing these young, vulnerable, impressionable boys that they sought out, that they picked out based on the content and the stuff that they were already making. It literally disgusts me. I'm reminded that in the lawsuit that Bam filed against Jeff and Johnny and MTV and the rest of them back in August of 2021, he compared himself to Britney Spears. What do we know about Britney Spears? She was abused and exploited by her managers and her parents. And I'm not saying that's what happened to Bam, but I am just reminded of that lawsuit. It seems to me, and listen, hindsight is 2020, but for me, looking at that Vice documentary and really kind of watching through some of the clips again, it seems nothing but predictable that these guys would have developed dependencies on substances, that these guys would have had to have very, very serious therapy or whatever version of that would be from the absolute trauma that they endured during filming Jackass. And I know a lot of y'all are going to say, well, they signed up for it. And it's like, maybe so, but does that mean just because somebody signed up for something that you should be sadistic and abusive? Like, I don't think so. The snake scene really messed me up, the one that I put earlier, because they knew that that was Bam's biggest fear. He hated snakes. It wasn't just like, oh, we're going to surprise you, slapping you. We're going to throw a pie in your face. We're going to even harm you. We're going to push you off of something, make you fall into a pit. That's like one brand of prank. It's a whole nother level of psychological insanity for someone like Jeff Tremaine to be standing there offset, laughing and giggling and knowing that he has put somebody in their worst fear unexpected. It's sick. It's disgusting. And it's completely predictable that Bam would end up in a position where he had to drown out those feelings because he was telling people, this is my worst fear. It's not just like, oh, I signed up to jump into a sewer ditch. I signed up to, do some nudity in public. No. They were all laughing at him being traumatized. And that's one scene. And I told y'all in this video, I have made deliberate attempts not to watch this footage. This is some of the only footage I've seen of the whole show. And there must be, just based on the law of averages, hours and hours of scenes just like that, where Johnny and Jeff are laughing and snickering and coordinating stunts and financing stunts and encouraging everyone else to laugh while they are abusing, in my opinion, and traumatizing young men. I don't think it's cool. And after watching this documentary from Vice, I don't even think Vice went out of their way to make it look that bad. I don't think Vice was trying to make it be like, all right, look how horrible. Actually, if anything, they gave Spike Jonze and Jeff Tremaine and Johnny Knoxville a very favorable edit. But for me, I just can't help but read between the lines. I've been around addiction my whole entire life. So it's just very, very difficult for me to separate out the context of addiction with mental health and all of that as a response to trauma. Trauma happens namely and primarily in situations where something bad happens or whatever, you're not safe in that position or you don't feel safe. How could Bam have felt safe whenever the people that were around him every single day, the people who were making lots and lots of millions of dollars off of him, were putting him in positions to be traumatized by his worst fears and then encouraging everyone around to laugh at him? That is gaslighting. That is not taking someone's legitimate fears seriously. And for what? For what? Again, this one isn't one I can take credit. I cannot say, oh, we were laughing. We were not laughing at it. Because as an 11, 12, 13-year-old little girl, I knew that this was not acceptable content for consumption. I knew that. Maybe some of y'all didn't know it. Maybe some of y'all still like it. That's fine. Y'all can like it. But this is my channel. This is my opinion. And in my opinion, oh God, I just feel so like, I know I keep saying I just feel so bad. I just feel so bad because every adult around the situation was enabling it, encouraging it, and making money off of it. Look at these guys now today. Almost every one of them ended up addicted to some substance in a very debilitating way. And the ones who didn't, most of them don't even communicate with the rest of them anymore. I think it is about time in 2022, going into 2023, to acknowledge and recognize and call it what it was. And that even goes for the ones of them I don't like. That even goes for the ones of them that don't like me. That even goes for the ones of them that have me blocked on Instagram. Unblock me, Steve-O. I said it in my BJ Investigates video. As much as I don't like the man, as much as we have our little personal beef or whatever, it wasn't cool what he went through. It wasn't cool how he was treated. It wasn't cool how Brandon Novak was treated. And it wasn't cool how Bam was treated. That's just facts. That's not even an opinion. We got to start calling stuff what it is. It's about damn time. Facts ain't defamation. Love you, mean it, K, bye.